Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Michael, KE4EST. And we are back here with the Hallicrafters SX-140. Okay, so I went through this thing. I've replaced parts. I've checked this, I've checked that. I've tried to clean it up. I don't know how much you can see from the camera here, but I went through and cleaned it really good. Like places like this, you can still see like a little bit of rust coming through. I'm just going to leave that. I don't have anything to match this color paint exactly, so I'm just going to leave that. You know, it's what, 60 years old. It's 19. Best I could figure, going by what I could read the serial number back there. I think this is 1961, so I did a little more research on them. And I think another video I put up, well, after I made a mistake and said 50s, but I meant 60 to 65. Another place I was reading said they was manufactured from 1960 to 63. So, somewhere in the early 60s. And this particular one, I think 61. But anyway, I went through and cleaned up best I could. I don't know if you can see here. You can see the little bit of rust trying to come through there, and I tried to straighten this out too very carefully, where this corner was kind of bent back a little bit, but that's just going to have to be part of its patina. Cleaned all the knobs. You can see how shiny they are now. And then all these here, I went back and put paint back on like they were from factory. A lot of it was faded off or gone. And it might be hard to see, but these little indentation, little dot, like they take a drill and something, zip, zip. If you can see that, but I went and put a little dot right in there. So I did all that, cleaned it up. See it. Started to take the camera and hand hold it, but maybe we can see it. I don't want to make you drunk from all the jitterness. You can see I cleaned all this up and how bad it was. Took the tubes off and cleaned them, checked them. Replaced this one here, which had been replaced before. It was a Realistic brand, which something Radio Shack come out with years ago. But all the rest of these, the other four, all have Hallicrafters stamped on them. But except for the one that was, it was reading okay, but kind of iffy, so I put a new one in it, a new old stock. It was reading a lot better. I lubricated the, well, let's see, yeah, I went and restrung that black string. Is harder to see, ain't it? But let's see, maybe you can see it. But restrung the dial cord. And then in here I've lubricated and put white lithium grease. And boy, you're talking about smooth. When I first restrung it, it still was kind of rough. Moving it back and forth, it just felt rough. And I lubricated these here with oil. Lubricated the points down in here with oil. You know, and then all the capacitors and everything. And of course I went and, you know, lubricated the switches and took contact cleaner to all the potentiometers and all that stuff too. Cleaned the tube sockets. But I didn't have this here, and it's kind of rough. You know, I guess, you know, I could have took it off, I guess, and sanded it a little bit. But I don't know if factory or just, maybe just 60 years of corrosion on it a little bit. It's a little bit rough, not real bad. If it had been really bad, I'd have took it off, but you just take these two right here loose, and you can pull the whole thing out. These here's riveted on, but I would have just left those and just took, you know, hand sandpaper and just went over it, like 400 grit or something. You know, took it across it and went back and forth a few times. Anyway, so it's real smooth now. Replaced this dial lamp over here. Well, you can't really see that with the camera, but I replaced it. These are both type 47. I put some like this here, you know, this regular type GE 47s. I replaced it with LED versions. Put one there, and then the one over here, replaced it, and this is just a shield over it that come with it. And this here don't have a shield, but it's kind of, I don't know if it's got lost or if they did it on purpose, because this shield kind of comes up and over to the top, you know. But with it open like that, it goes up in here and lights up this meter, so a little bit. So I don't know if that was on purpose or not. I guess I could look at the parts list and see if it showed that or whatever. But anyway, so that's all that there. Why don't I didn't clean the crystal? I didn't wipe that down. But anyway, so there's all that. Cleaned up the transformer and repainted it, just to make it look a little better. I mean, this is pretty much going to be a shelf queen. I'll mess with it a little bit here and there. It's just neat to listen to these things, but this one's mainly going to be a shelf queen. But I still want to make it, you know, I want it to be working in good shape. And if I want to pull it down, just fire it up, and be able to do that without having to worry about anything. Okay, and then, so that's all that. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and look at the underside. Then we'll have a look at the schematic. I've got the, I mentioned before, but I've got the original manual that came with it. It's got the schematic in it, parts list. There's the parts list. I see pilot lamps, but miscellaneous parts. Well, I don't see anything about a lamp shield or anything, just glancing over it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but we'll go over that in a minute. So let's get up here, and we'll do like before. We'll kind of, let's bring it in a little bit here. We'll kind of start at the top here, but you can see what it did. Replace these two capacitors here, and that one, all these three here, these bumblebees, all these, there's one down here in the middle. There's 1, 2, 3 bumblebees, one on down here. Replace these two electrolytics, this electrolytic, this filter cap, replaced it, and I checked all of them, and some of them was like, iffy. The bumblebees were not, but I was actually surprised some of these electrolytics actually showed that they could actually work a little bit, even up to the voltage, you know, that this is on, not to 350 volts or whatever. What were those? The 200. Wait a minute, I don't think that's it. I've got them scattered here on another desk over here, but they might have actually could have fired up with the voltage that's on the circuit here, but you know, it's just a ticking time bomb, so get rid of those. That little rope thing, if you remember in the first video, it was through here. Never could figure out what in the world that was all about, so I got rid of that. As we come on down here, let's bring it back down a little bit. There's that where the other bumblebee was. Change that out. And then I think it's better if I just flip it. I'm gonna be careful this way. The transformer's sitting right up here. You barely see it top screen me moving. So here's transformer right behind here, so it makes it top heavy. I want to flip over. Okay, I replaced the line cord. It's got a brand new line cord on it, and it comes around into here. I placed it. It had a strain relief here, one of those that clamps down and goes in. But it was pretty deteriorated, so I just put a rubber grommet in there and just use zip ties or zap straps, whatever you want to call it, for strain relief, with some heat shrink over it. And I mean, I pulled really hard on that. That ain't going nowhere. And I've got it tucked back in here, and it goes, one's here and one's here. If you remember, there's pretty good sized capacitors here, kind of like this here. These big disc capacitors they use for bypass capacitors on the AC line coming in, but those weren't safety capacitors. They checked out okay, but you know, if one was to go shorted, so I put safety capacitors across the line, and then those other older weird looking diodes that was in here, I replaced those. 15408s I think is what I put in here. That was another thing. I was, you know, I was like, well, let's go with my 1N4007s, or I should say 007s, 4007. And I was looking up these, found there's another thing, 2 or 3 things about those diodes. Yeah, I have moved stuff around. I was gonna, you seen them in the other video. One place said they was good for 800 milliamps. Another place said 2.6 amps. One place said 3 amps. And then some forums of people was saying 3 amps. So just to be on the safe side, I went with these are 3 amp diodes. And this I'll go ahead and mention here. I don't know, you probably didn't see it in the other video. If you go back in the other video and look real close, you'll see there's a crack right in there. You can just barely see it. I didn't even catch it at first. And it was a 1/2 watt resistor, 10 ohm. There was a crack in it. And when I got to pulling out these 2 capacitors here on this voltage doubler, I noticed that one of them, I think it was this one here, trying to see if there's a little bit, maybe it was this one, was exploded from the back side. And if you put a meter across, it's almost a dead short. So somebody tried to plug it in. I don't know, maybe one had the, you know, that line cord I seen was somebody patched up in the first video, and they plugged it in, and I'm sure there was a lot of smoke, because this, the capacitor that was here, exploded, and this here would turn into a resistor. I mean, this turned into a fuse. This 10 ohm resistor turned into a fuse, and I'm sure it smoked a lot, but it was open, because I pulled solder off of here and here, desoldered all this solder here to redo all this, and it just fell loose. You know, it's like that. But I didn't put no force, no stress. You know how sometimes you take your, you know, you shouldn't ever do it, but everybody does. You take your solder in there and you get it in there, and you're trying to get a piece out, and you're just, you know, you take a pair of needle nose and you grab one part and you just kind of heat it and just take your solder in there and move it or something, trying to get it loose. I didn't even do any of that. It just fell loose. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Then when I got the capacitor, I seen the backside had blowed out, and there's a bunch of stuff up in here I cleaned out. It's like, well, that's got to be replaced. So I replaced it with a 1 watt, because that's what I had. I think a 1/2 watt would have been just fine. But anyway, replaced all that. What else? Like, there's something else I was going to mention that I went over, but I ended up leaving the headphone jack in there. And this resistor is good here, even though it looks bad, but it's just, I kept checking, and of course the circuit that's in, I was looking at the schematic, there's no reason it should get really hot or anything, and it's reading right on, so I left that in there. But I will mention something else too. They did a good job at the factory putting the capacitors in the right way, and you can see I've got a little dot on the end of this one here. And I think I've mentioned this before, but there's no need in going, you know, reinventing the wheel on it. If you go to Mr. Carlson's lab, and he's got a video on it. I think it's called "Are Your Capacitors Installed Backwards?" Because these capacitors here, you know, they're not like the electrolytics not polarized, but still one side's, you know, they got the full, you know, it's layered full, and their dielectric and whatever they're using, they roll it up in there, and one side, outside's going to be a full, okay, and then the other side's soldered inside of it and attached. So you need to make sure that your full side is going to the lowest impedance part of your circuit, like this is going to ground. So that full will come up all the way over this, so it's shielded all the way back, all the way to here, to this point right here, coming out of the bottom of the capacitor. So I went through, and of course he shows you how in the video to do that, and if you go to his Patreon page, he's got a better device to check those really good and make sure your capacitors are installed right. You know, some of the stuff, like I even did that with the voltmeter, or, you know, the VTVM and stuff, but it's kind of but when you get in something with receivers, you want to make sure it's right, because if you get it backwards, you're going to introduce some extra hum you don't need in your circuit. But anyway, so there's all that. So let's set it down, and okay, let's bring this, let's bring this back over here so we can see it. And I'm going to plug it into the Variac and oscillation transformer. I've been waiting for this. Everything looks really good, so I'm not expecting anything bad, but we're gonna see. I've moved the camera so that we can maybe in some kind of see it. Turn that light off there, and I'm going to, in the front of the radio, I'm going to put the off standby AM CW sideband switch to standby, and I've got a speaker hooked up, and I'm going to bring up the Variac slowly. Here we go. We're about halfway right there. You can see this might be bad. Let's try it. You can definitely see the dial lights really bright. Okay, let's bring it on up. Alright, there's full bore, and yeah, you can see those tubes glowing. So far everything looks good. Let's get some lights back on here. Okay, I'm going to move the camera and be right back. Okay, let's see what happens. Bring that volume down just in case. Just trying to see if you can hear that. It's good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up to do an alignment and let it warm up for a while so that it's warmed up as good as it can be outside the cabinet and all that. And while that's happening, turn that volume down, put it back on standby here. While that's happening, we're going to go over the schematic a little bit here. Best we can. I don't know. This is pretty small. Let me see if I can set it up here somehow. Okay. I ain't the very best way to do this, but anyhow, if you can see here, here's your antenna connection. It comes in and goes through the switch here. It switches the different coils for the different bands, 80 through 6. Then we come in through here. This here is your antenna trimmer. Of course it says it, but that's on the front of the radio. Over here, that was that antenna trimmer. And that's just to match the antenna, you know, better to your, you know, like when you're tuning anything, kind of like if you're tuning a guitar string, you want to get that matched up with the antenna and matched with the rest of the circuit, you know, and get it in resonance, and you'll get a better signal coming in. Let's see, it comes through here, goes into our goes into the RF amplifier, 6AZ8. Okay, comes over here, which is going into the mixer, the 6U8. And down here we have, let me see, you can see me. Let's try this. Let's try this. I don't know. Maybe you can see that. There's a schematic online, you know, if you're interested in looking at it more. Down here's your oscillator, and this one's got a 1.650 IF, so this here's running 1.65 kilocycles higher than the input frequency, you know, than the, you know, the frequency you want to tune to. So it's going here into the mixer, which is coming out, and then we got the 1.65 going through the first IF transformer, and then going to the second IF transformer. And then over here is our detector. You know, and this is one of those tubes that's got, look at all the elements in that tube. 6T8. That might work a little better there. And then we got coming out of here is our first audio amplifier, which goes in here to the second audio amplifier. Oh. Which goes into the second audio amplifier. Right here. And of course that's your speaker. And then this over here. This here's just that crystal oscillator. When you flip it on calibrate to whatever crystal you got plugged in the back there to calibrate it. And then over here, this is kind of, I don't know, I've never seen one like this before, but this is a Meteor Amplifier that goes, you know, for the meter, but I don't know. I'm not really understanding exactly why they did that. But there's that. Over here is power supply. Very, you know, simple power supply. Here's the two capacitors I changed right here. I changed the line cord. These two capacitors. It goes to ground. And then we got our filaments right here on parallel, and the lamps. And then we got here 85 volts AC coming out. Goes to our voltage doubler. Comes out here 225. And then on this line here we got a 820 ohm drop-in resistor, and we got 175 volts going to like your oscillator and stuff like that. So I mean, there's pretty much a real quick rundown of the schematic. I was reading some of the people thought it was silly too to have that meter amplifier, and there was some people that actually took that out that did some modifications to the radio. This I'm just going to leave it stock and a shelf queen, except for, of course, I've got LED light bulbs plugged into it, but I didn't do any modification or just made it, you know, directly replace the Type 47. But they took that out and did a couple other things. You know, they said they did, you know, interested in reading some of that. If you go to Google and do some search on this receiver and some of the modifications people did, because it's got a bad reputation for it's not the best design and has all kinds of different weird things going on. But we'll see when we get it lined up. So anyway, let me get this jittery thing back down. But anyway, so I'll get this thing set up to, we'll go through the calibration on it, and we'll see how it is. This here, while I'm thinking about this phone jack, I didn't, like I said, I didn't replace it. I cleaned this really good, and then I put a new nut and washer on it because it was so rusty. I just put a new one on it. I'll get this all set up for alignment, and we'll be back with that. Okay, so I've got this all set up to do an alignment right now. I've got the frequency generator. I've got it set up on 1.65 megahertz or 1650 kilohertz, however way you want to look at it. Got this set up here and it's on. It's been running, so I got to be very careful. Get high voltage all in here. You know, anytime you're doing any of this, take very careful and care what you do. Don't let your hand slip in there and hit anything, because you can get shocked really bad or even killed. So when you do any of this, you're doing so at your own risk. But anyway, it's set on 1.65 kilocycles or 1.65 megacycles. Okay, and then I've got, yeah, you can see that here. We've got it tied into pin 2 of, you know, V2, like it says, and I'll read it here just in a minute, which is like your 6U8. There's a couple of different ways it shows in the manual to align it. One is if you got a crystal, one using signal generator. And I actually looked around over the last couple of weeks as I was setting this up and restoring this, and knew I was going to do the video on it. And, you know, checked eBay and whatever, and I never could find any 1650 crystals. So, you know, it'd be kind of neat just to show it both ways. But so I'm going to do alignment method number 2 in the book, and it says you need a signal generator, an output meter, 0.02 microfarad capacitor, and of course non-metallic alignment tool. It says disconnect the antenna, which I've done, or didn't even hook one up yet, and remove the from its chassis, which it is. Okay, and then the antenna trim set to the center of range, the calibration reset center of range, which I've got all this already preset up here. Function switch in the sideband, CW and sideband mode, which I'll set in just a second. Band selector 10 meters, main tune 29 megacycles, calibration off, run your RF gain all the way up, A&L off, selectivity and BFO maximum clockwise, audio gain maximum clockwise. Connect your signal. I'm going to kind of paraphrase this a little bit, but connect the signal generator to pin 2 of 6U8, which I have done, through a 0.02 microfarad capacitor, which I've got set up here. You see that. This is a jig I made up. It's got, I can separate or tie it together. This is 2.01 capacitors, but I've got them parallel right now, so I got 0.02. Set the signal generator frequency to 1650 kilocycles. Connect the output meter across the speaker terminals with the speaker connected. Adjust the signal generator output with a modulated 400 cycles audio. And the signal generator I'm using is the one I restored in one of my other videos a few months back. The Heathkit laboratory generator. The IG, was it IG42? Yeah. So that's the one I've got over here set up I'm using. I've had it on for a while too, since it's an older tube setup. And I used the frequency counter to make sure I was on frequency. I got my frequency counter that's tied to GPS, so it's, you know, dead on. So I set and let it warm up and touch that up to it's right on 1.65 or really close to it. You know, this ain't got to be super perfect with this. I mean, you can, but we got an old analog receiver. I'm gonna just do it using that. Just, you know, that's the way they did it back then. And then you got your IF transformers, T3 and T2. Let's see. Show you, maybe. So there's a layout of it, and it shows you over here on this side. You see T3. You can see that, and T2. And this says adjust IF transformer T3 and T2 slugs for maximum indication on the output meter in the order listed below, readjusting signal generator output if necessary to maintain an indication on the output meter. Okay, it says start with T3, which is up here on the top of the can, which would be back over here. I'm back over here at the top of the can, and then come around to T3's bottom of the can, which is up in here, and then do T2 top of can and bottom of can. Then repeat step 6, which is step 6 in this manual, for final peaking of IF transformers. And then of course disconnect the signal generator and the capacitor. Okay, so we got everything set here. Set that. And see, we got an indication. I can adjust the signal strength on the generator or the modulation or the volume. Let's just say, you know, the audio out, you know, the output, but or volume. You know, the strength of the modulated tone, with leaving the signal generator at the same level. The RF level, signal is the same level. You probably hear that a little bit. I've got the speaker kind of muffled a little bit, so it's not killing us. I started to put a load across it, just like a 4-ohm load or something, but you know, if you're doing this, you ain't got all that. That's what you're going to hear, is a little bit of a tone there. So it says start with T3 top of can. So we come over here. I've actually got 2 alignment tools. So if you see, hey, he's got this one still here and he's adjusting. If you kind of see it flickering around down here. So you look over at the meter, and see that starting to move. Oh, we hit the peak, back off, kind of rock it back and forward. That's going to be close there. And it says come to the bottom. There we go. Whoa, now look at that. It was out a little bit, wasn't it? Just a little bit, huh? You ever had anybody want you to work on something and say, that's just a little bit off, it won't take you but a minute. Okay, then it says go to. Okay, let's bring that down just a little bit. Don't get too loud. Go to the top of the other IF transformer. Nope. And just that was. Here's close. And then the bottom. Let me go back up to the top up here on this one here. Which one? This was T3. Go back to the top of the can. And a lot of times you look at it and say, okay, I got it, I peaked them all, but let's go back and look. See how it comes up just a little bit. Back to the bottom. See that. Back to the top of T2. We're bringing it up more, and you think, well, that was good enough, but nope. That's why you need to go back and forth a few times on this. See that move? Got my hand too close there somewhere. See that? Alright, let's start back at the top again. Maybe still just slowly bringing it up. Yeah, I think we're getting that one close. Go back to the top of the one down here. Now you can do this with an oscilloscope too, or you can do it with an audio output meter. You know, they've got those you can get, or even Heathkit made those back in the day. I've got one I'm going to go over one day and restore, maybe set it up, or I don't know, the VTVM works just fine. You come back up here. See, we just keep bringing it up a little bit and a little bit at a time here. Here, I think we just about got it, but it keeps coming up, don't it? Go back up here, and be careful when you're doing this, don't get crazy. Sometimes these will be stuck after sitting there a lot of years. Sometimes you have to kind of just work it back and forth very carefully, put a little force on it to get it to start moving. You don't want to break that powdered iron slug in there. You don't ever want to use a metal tool. For one, you'll detune it, and you'll think, well, I got it, and as soon as you take it out, that needle will move. You pull this out, the needle will move. And then some of these, depends on how they was designed, you can stick your tool down and get the crap shocked out of you. Okay, there's that. Let's get rid of that. So that's peaked up. Okay. Now very carefully, let's watch what we're doing here. Let's remove this. Okay. Yeah, let's maybe leave that there. So that part of it's done. Now, for the oscillator alignment, it's got, if you use method number 2, so let's take a 27 ohm resistor. Okay. Remember now, I've got, let's put it on standby. I've got this thing. It is definitely the screwdriver I wanted, but I'll stick this on here. Take the 27 ohm resistor and put it on the antenna terminal. That's what I'm going to do now. Okay. So I've just got, you can see that right here, just stuck on the antenna terminal. Let's get rid of that metal screwdriver. Okay. And let's bring this around. Okay. And here's your oscillator coils right in here. Okay. I'm going to use a different tool for that. It's got the hex slugs in these. And I'm not going to go through every one of these on here. I mean, this video is already getting really long. I'll just grab the 40 meter and do it right here. And we'll hook this up to the antenna and we tune around and listen at it. I'll just do 40 meters. This time of morning should be about the only thing I'll get pretty good in this time of the sun cycle and all of that stuff. So I'll just do 40 meters. I'll go through and do them all, but I'm just going to show 40 meters, but you'll have to do the same procedure for all 6 of these across here. But do that, and then you take your, you don't need the capacitor no more. You take and hook your signal generator across there on the output. Then we got to set our signal generator according to what it says. Okay, so same way with this. Antenna trim, center range, calibration reset, center range. Function switch, CW sideband. Band selector goes on the band you're going to tune. I'm going to do 40 meters. Main tuning, put it what it says in the chart. It's got a chart here. Okay. Down here you can see that chart, tells you what to adjust and what to put it on. Alright. Connect your signal generator through the 27 ohm resistor to the antenna terminal and the ground side of the chassis. The output meters should still be connected across the speaker terminals. Set the signal generator frequency to 3.5 megacycles. We're going to go 7 megacycles. Adjust the signal generator output to modulated 400 hertz tone for accurate output on the watt meter, or on the output meter. Rotate the slug. It says L18, of course it's starting at 80 meters. We're going to do L17. Make sure here. Yeah, this one here is the L18, L17, L16, and it probably, look at the size of the coil. It jumps back over here and comes across. Okay, so rotate this slug. Okay, adjust that. Rotate the slug counterclockwise until 400 hertz audio tone is heard, and speaker. Rotate the slug slowly back and forth until the maximum deflection is indicated on the output meter. Adjust the oscillator coils for the remaining bands, and so on and so forth. Now, RF alignment for 6, 10, and 15 meters is a little bit different, but not, nothing major. So let's see, we got everything. Let's turn this. What was that noise? Alright, let's go to 7. I'm trying to pick up something. That's good. $40 meters, CW. That's up, that's up. Okay. Setting on 7.0 on the dial. Alright, let's adjust that slug. Get it in there like I want it. Now you see the meter. It's real touchy. All we're doing here, this ain't the easiest one to set. It ain't gotta be super perfect, because don't freak out if you don't get it, because you can watch this with that. Watch the calibration reset. I'm just probably touching that calibration reset. So I mean, you can bring it up with that too if you don't get it perfect. Almost had it in the wrong hole there. You can leave that. I'm doing the calibration reset, and it's looks to me pretty close to being right in the center of the range. So, you know, all that's doing is lining this up like you put it on 7 megacycles or 3.5 megacycles with the calibration reset in the center. That way, when you use the calibration reset, it gives you a range either way to go, you know, and it's not way off here, way off on the other side or something. And say your calibration reset's turned way down the other way and you adjust this. If it's all the way, say, counterclockwise, and this is off too a little bit the wrong way. Well, you can turn it all you want and you won't ever hear that tone of 0 beat. So, I mean, that's all we're doing here with those. But, I mean, that's pretty much the alignment procedure. Let me get the everything. We can shut the signal generator down to standby. Put this on standby. Disconnect things here. And let me get it set back up here and we'll hook it to an antenna and see if we can tune anything. I'll be right back. Alright guys, I'm back here. We're going to just tune through it real quick. I know this video's already gotten really long, so hope you're still with me here. And I've got the case back on this. I'm going to try not to get too drunk, but I'm going to hand hold you here just for a minute. Okay. And kind of let you see here. I went and there, get the light in there. Get the light in there. See there. Went and sanded this down, repainted it. So it looks way different than it did when it first. When I pulled it off the shelf in there. So anyway, let's go through this. And let's have a listen to it. I've got it set up on 40 meters. It's hooked to a 40 meter dipole. So let's see what we'll pick up here. Already got it warmed up. Everything's set here pretty much. And like I said, you gotta, this one you really gotta, you know, you gotta constantly, you know, check your antenna trim. Keep your hand on your RF gain. Your BFO. The way I've learned to do this, especially this particular, it's not the best design just to leave it all the way up. I mean, the book says that, just leave the VFO all the way, BFO turned all the way up, and it says, you know, once you tune a station, you can back off on it to the point that it drops out, right at the point where it starts to drop out, and then you got maximum selectivity. But this thing, I was listening around on it, and I can see where some of these guys just really are, you know, against this radio or saying whatever, but we seen the schematic, you know, and I don't know what they were thinking. I guess they were trying to skimp out on some stuff, but, you know, make it a entry-level radio or receiver, but hey, you know, they could have done a couple things different, you know, instead of using the Meteor Amplifier, you know, use that half of that tube for other things. But anyway, it is what it is. So here we are. So let's have a listen to it. But like I said, you know, this thing you really gotta keep you ready on this and your AF gain back and forward, and you know, when you're tuning down, always, you know, touch up the antenna trim as you get down the band. But you'll see here. Alright, let's bring the volume up. And we're down here at the bottom of the band. You can see if I put the calibrate on. Well, come on. You hear that? You can hear that there. There we go. Right there, 0 beat. Okay, so this should be, actually I'm not exactly on, am I? Put that right on 7. Now we're zero beated. Okay. You see the antenna trim, you can hear that. You know, if the antenna is not matched up with the rest of the circuit, so I'm way over here, you can hear that peak and the noise. And that's what you're doing with this, you're just tuning for maximum noise. You love it when they don't talk with a second.
When they come down, you never know which light's going where. Yeah, I've been down a couple of times that way in the last few years with my stallion, and so I'm real careful. I don't go on uneven ground. I go on the level ground. 340. Let's see, Texas 40. Sugar Charlie, Cuba, very strong, about 20 over 9 here, and it's not in QRZ. T40 doesn't seem to be. There's one area that keeps on, there's one area that keeps bleeding, I don't know why, but it's supposed to go in Friday and get the stitches taken out.
This one going Friday and get your stitches taken out. See how the RF gain, if I overdrive it, you just got to really keep this. The key to keep, you know, this receivers, keep this RF gain down. If you go up with it like a lot of radios, it just distorts and overdrives it. Really weak station. Which happens when I grab this RF gain. Faded out on me.
I really got to get there. A lot of the guys go and they come back with all kinds of goodies. So,
see what happened there?
Here, I'll get to go there. Back to you. Okay, answer that. What, you put T40 star in QRZ and you got some kind of that came up? I did a T40 star and I get about 10 or so calls from Cuba. Oh, it must be, I'm not logged in, that's what happened. Sorry. Where did you get, where are they located? You mean on the band, or I don't know the QTH. No, yeah, I'm saying when you click any one of those calls, are they anywhere? Are they Havana?
But anyway, you get the idea there. So it's doing its job. It's working. It may not be the best in the world, but hey, it's working. And you know, somebody could sit here and listen for hours to this thing and still get, you know, you may have to twiddle with this a little bit and whatever, but hey, it's 1960, you know, early 1960s. And that's just the way it is, and it's still, you know, it's back to its former glory, if you want to call it glory, and it works. And I really enjoyed doing this project. I don't care if it's this or if it's, you know, really expensive, you know, receiver with all the bells and whistles. They're always fun to go through these things and bring them back to life and make them work again. Ever since, even when I was, you know, it's the same, I still get the same feeling when I was a teenager and I was going to ham fests, and these older guys would be like, hey man, you know, why are you looking at all this tube stuff, and you know, the solid state's the way to go now, you know, because late 80s, early 90s, you know, when I was starting to look at this stuff and really get interested in it, these guys, you know, tube stuff was like, oh, that's old, slow, analog, everything's going digital, everything, they're starting to come out with phase lock loop, you know, all this, you know, why would you want that stuff? And, you know, here, almost 30 years later, I'm still, you know, like a kid in a candy store with this stuff. So it's just fun to bring it back. It's fun to get these receivers out like this and sit and listen to them. And, you know, piddle with the knobs and stuff. It's just, you know, it's really fun. I wouldn't want to sit and work a contest with this or, you know, whatever. And I still, you know, I like new technology. I like, you know, DSP and all the cool filtering and all the, you know, the advances in receiver technology. Don't get me wrong. You know, with the new radios and all that. But, you know, you just gotta love the old tube stuff. So, anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I'll be coming out with more stuff like this, different radios, different projects. Until the next video, this is Michael, KE4EST 73.